questioning and quantifying sensations. Through paying attention to the level beneath, or maybe rather beyond our ego, we can become way more sensitive and in actuality observe the state and eventual progress on our way to thriving happiness. In this way, extending and honing the associated senses is essential to success with the innate method. Not all answers are really helpful. Maybe you had aches after some work and you ask whether this particular work was harmful to you. Let us say you get a yes. You may continue just to make things clear and ask if it was good for you. And again, you may get a yes. Now you become insecure and confused. Here it might come in handy to test just how harmful was the work. Maybe it turns out that it was only 10% harmful, not really worth mentioning. But as you asked, the answer was given. It was harmful to some degree, and yes, it was good too. Your body loved the movements and workout and rated it as 75% good, despite the 10% strain. Of course, you can continue and ask what was harmful and so on. Thus, quantifying your findings really gives the testing another dimension. Try, for instance, to recall a moment of strong feelings, let's say anxiety. I remember I had to make a speech at my dad's 75th birthday. I always felt horrible when I had to make announcements. I felt horrible all the way through the party until it was done. Now, recalling all of it, I can perceive it exactly as if it was right now. At this very moment, I can validate my anxiety from back then. On a scale from 1 to 100, where 100 is the worst, how anxious was I? 60? No, worse, 70? Maybe 80? I settle with 70. Not bad. I have just objectified my feeling of anxiety. Not only that, I did it on an occasion that took place years ago. Well, as a scientist, you may laugh and shake your head. This is just ridiculous. This is in no way objectified. No, not really. It is not objective as in Richter's magnitude scale of earthquakes. Two earthquakes with the same strength on the Richter scale can be compared, and you might expect similar scenes playing out around such two sites. Not so with your and my anxiety. Even if you find a scary moment in your life validated to a 70 like mine, those two events cannot be compared. One reason is that it is 70 out of 100, and that your 100 may be, or definitely is, different from my 100. This 70 for me came about while making a speech. Maybe your 70 occurred as you faced a lion with nothing but your toothbrush. See the point? As time goes by, even my 100 changes. The stress at my father's 75th birthday is 70 compared to my current threshold. Maybe it was rather 80 back then. And yet there is something objective to it. 70 out of 100 is a comparison. 70 out of 100 equals 70%. Values in percent are used extensively in statistics, and science would perform poorly without it. You only have to be very careful about what and how you compare. Knowing that your 100 of anything basically may change over time, it pays off to refresh the old numbers if they need to be compared with new ones. Another problem is to get a question precise. When you ask, what is the pH of my body? it generates a lot of unresolved questions. First off, the body does not have one uniform pH. Your heart and your stomach will have very different acidity. Even two muscles situated close to each other can have substantially different pH. Maybe the one of them just had to work very hard and became exhausted and acidic. Maybe one of them is inflicted by an allostatic load which restricts the blood flow and reduces the pH. Next problem is the pH scale. As earlier mentioned, the body is pretty good at computing big and complex calculations on the fly. But if you ever worked with any kind of exact measurements, even thermometers, you will know that they have to be calibrated. How are you going to calibrate the pH measuring capability of your subconsciousness? Well, it's not that hard actually. In order to get it correct, you can add this to your question, where 7.35 is the most convenient state. Now the subconscious will adjust any pH you asked for to 7.35 as being the best available. But where did you get that number from? Some science report came up with it, you may respond. You know what? Science reports come up with contradicting truths and numbers all the time. This is how science works on the path to perfection and while seeking the truth. Therefore, it makes sense to drop specific numbers connected to a certain scale and rather ask for percentages of a desired result. How about asking for a number compared to what is the best possible state achievable for your body under the current conditions? Or what about asking for a number compared to what is the best possible state achievable at any time in and with this body? Can you see that these questions are specific, yet very different, and that they most certainly will generate different results? If you just did some few days of partying with almost no sleep and plenty of alcohol and smoking, the best possible state achievable under current conditions will of course be worse than the best achievable when you just did a hike in the wilderness with tree hugging. Now that you have opened your sensibility, you can expand it by exercising and measuring things. You will experience that the things you can measure become more and more subtle. You can ask questions to which the body never would have given answers by itself. You can test to which extent you enjoy the weekend trips with the family. You can differentiate and determine whether you join because of grandma's wonderful cakes or because of the silent fishing by the shore. On such an occasion, you might be able to make hundreds of validations, which will bring you a huge step forward. Remember that most things are in flow. Things can and will change, some hither and thither, some dramatically in a split second, some slowly over many years. And then, of course, there are lots of things you would hesitate to validate. This may be wrong tool for predicting things like, how is the weather going to be tomorrow? Is this lottery ticket going to win? Will she become a good wife? Yet, as your subconscious has an almost unlimited calculation power, you might be tempted to forecast things. And with some care, it is possible to grasp a steady changing trend or foresee an inevitable crash. If a person just had a surgery, you can see him recover, it is possible to ask for a progress. Now being on day X, And with the current recovery rate since the surgery, how long will it take for a full recovery? How long will it take before he can go to work? Your subconscious will be able to estimate the time needed based on the time passed and the progress already made. However, did you really grasp the whole picture? Did you take into account that after returning from the hospital, all the old problems will take their toll and eventually send him back to hospital with a new heart attack? Connecting to other forces, however, you can draw on their knowledge. Ask them, so to speak, and telepathically you will be able to know pretty much what they know, limited though to your own knowledge and imagination. This is outside the scope of this book.